It's not so surprising to see so many of you here today interested in the points that are going to be focused on: new marine technology and marine education. It's good looking around to see so many young faces here, for it is imperative, no matter what you think regarding the industry's efforts to make shipping ever more safer and environmentally friendly, the industry is moving through one of its most challenging phases ever. Decisions regarding issues governing the operation of ships not only have to be made, they have to be implemented. Only with access to quality information can shipping people keep up to date with what is going on in a constantly changing industry. Further, the information has to be practical. We at Naftiliaki Newsfront believe this summit will not only provide information on tackling the ever-evolving developments, it will lead to discussions about the challenges faced and their impact on the practical and even legal points of view. It will also throw some light on how to recruit people to ensure the future of the vital industry. This is the 14th summit Naftiliaki Newsfront has organised under the auspices of Greece's Marine Technical Managers Association, MARTECMA. We all know MARTECMA is an association that gathers under its umbrella some of shipping's most innovative and practical minds from both a technical and managerial point of view. And as usual, MARTECMA has played a leading role in putting together today's program. As I said, this is the 14th Green Shipping Summit. So we have been looking at greener shipping for some time. So have others, and they are the ones that make our strong group of sponsors and supporters. Indeed, they are the backbone of these events, and without them the event would not be possible. They are listed in front of me and behind me: ABS, BV, Lloyd's Register, RENA, Ocean King, and ARI Simulation. Now, as you have seen from the program, we have a strong lineup of speakers. Some of them you already know, and some you will soon know. We are honoured to have one of the most practical minds in the industry, Panos, as our keynote speaker. Panos is chairman of MARTECMA and technical director of Sea Traders, operators of a diversified bulk fleet and a vocal voice in the search for greener shipping. We are looking forward to hearing your comments, Panos. We have a tight schedule, and before I hand over to the summit chairman, George Tsavliris, another leading voice in how ships should be operated in today's environment, I want to say these events would be nothing without you, the delegates. I hope that by the end of the day, you will be in a better position to enter 2023 and embark on the long road beyond. Again, Naftiliaki Newsfront and MARTECMA welcome you. George, let's get the work for the day underway. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to sincerely thank the organisers and Natasha for inviting me to chair this this meeting rather. For me, it's quite important for the simple reason it makes me think out of the box, because we're referring to topics which I'm not technically conversant with, but I actually try to find a way of seeing the way forward, taking into account the very difficult phase which we're going through now in shipping, with so much contradiction, so many different points of view. And at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, we also have a tone of somewhat a large element of hypocrisy, which we all have to handle as well, because when the commercial trend comes into being active, then we have to think about what I mentioned sometimes is that don't listen to what they say, interpret what they mean. I happened to be at a conference a while ago at the Economist magazine, the Economist publication, which they had a session here in Greece, and that was mind-boggling when they're talking about the idea of upskilling or reskilling. And ladies and gentlemen, the issue we have here, which of course, as I say, I also like to refer to the fact we have some young audience in this room, which is indicative of the fact that the future of Greek shipping is basically dependent on the next generation. That worries me to a certain extent, because the reskilling and upskilling is something which is probably, sorry, the upskilling doesn't only concern people who work with us in our organizations, but it actually concerns us ourselves. I've been in the shipping business for perhaps over half a century, and quite frankly, I'm still on a learning curve, and sometimes people refer to having the experience, which actually is the leading factor in working in this field. I take the view that sometimes it's a disadvantage. It's a disadvantage, because the experience puts you in a situation of tracking a pace which is not commensurate with what is required today, which is thinking out of the box and being capable of adapting to all these changes. On that note, I'd like to thank you all very much for being here. I'd like to invite our keynote speaker, Panos, to come to the podium, and I hope we have an interesting day, and that we leave here knowing more than what we came. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Tsavliris. Thank you, David, for the warm words. I don't think I have special things to say today, so probably I will disappoint people with the introduction that you made. The last century technology made a big change in the life of the people on Earth, had a great impact, and of course had an impact in shipping, changing infrastructures and changing the ships as design, making the ships bigger, faster, more safe, more environmental friendly. But the last decades, we see that the developments of technology are very fast. We have seen some professions that they stopped, and we see new industries coming up, set up, and also disappearing within a few years. Be reminded of the video cassette, a full industry for production, distribution, selling points, 10 years, 15, that was all, and then disappear. This fast development of the technology is always forward, and we have the feeling that we cannot keep this pace. This fast change creates a risk, because actually we have no time for the proper implementation. We have no any experience building phase. We have what is considered today as advanced technology, by the time of application is already outdated. And shipping is an industry with so many regulations. We have regulations for everything, and we feel this gap more. For instance, in the rules, it is clearly described the communication between one system and another, with the specification of the cables and all details. At the same time, we have communication with remote controls, the same way that we use for our television. Is this application ready for marine equipment? We have seen that also for other solutions that are applied. Almost 20 years now, we have softwares controlling many pieces of equipment on board. But only recently, there are discussions about the maintenance of the software. All of this creates a huge pressure, actually, to catch up with the next developments. We're talking about computers, softwares, machine learning, artificial intelligence, and all of them are applied on board the ships. So probably we should change the traditional way of education to react faster. We should change the way that we're making rules to incorporate and to minimize the risk of this new technology. However, today in shipping, when we talk about technology, we think about environmental regulations, hydrogen, ammonia, batteries, and all of these technologies that will bring us to the next generation of ships. There are regulations, and there is a big difficulty to deal with them because even the regulations are contradictory sometimes. For instance, we have staunch supporters of the environmental regulations that at the time that they have to apply for CII, the big charterers, they try to escape. We have a huge cost in front of us, which has attracted industries outside shipping, for instance, banks and financial institutions, coming with environmental proposals, very expensive proposals, unknown environmental results. And even countries that are supporting the new regulations and are proposing levy on fuel in order to become more expensive and find different solutions. At the same time, they are drilling, for instance, Alaska, trying to inject in the market more fossil fuel. And we have also countries which are completely on the opposite side. They believe that the whole regulation is a geopolitical game. You know, shipping is very important for the economies. The economies that they have a fast pace of growth are needing shipping because they have the raw materials coming to the country at very low cost and their product going to the market at very low cost. If you increase this one, then this huge pace, the high rate of development will be reduced. And while in shipping we talk about next generation ships, and while we talk about the most innovative products and equipment, still on board we have some pieces of equipment that are almost archaic. We have, for instance, windlass, that in order to operate, you need 4 to 5 people, and they have to have also seamanship to operate. And this is the equipment that we put today on board. And there are situations that are out of the ordinary, and you have just people and the environment and their virtues and their capabilities to resolve the matter. So I could say that definitely we need the technology. We need education to apply this technology correctly and to minimize the risk. But definitely we should not underestimate the principles and the values that we built all these years in the shipping and the human factor that at a certain moment will be after a blackout alone to deal with the situation. Thank you very much for your questions.
I'd like to thank Panos for his very down-to-earth and elegant speech. I mean, that's what goes sometimes when you've built up some scar tissue and some experience. You come up with some facts which sometimes are not really prevalent or known to the world at large. Thank you very much, Panos. On that note, if I may, I'd like to call the moderator, Antonis Georgantzis, to take the floor as moderator, and he will be running the show with his colleagues who literally will have an interrelation with the comments, questions, and then perhaps at the end of the day some questions from the audience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I've been given the task to moderate the first panel, which is about managing and supporting the understanding and operation of new equipment to be used on the next generation of ships. The ships that we'll have to build and operate in the years to come, going through the decarbonization period. I don't think that we have to introduce our speakers. Everybody is well known to the industry, so we're trying to save and cut time. So if I may just jump into the first topic, the first question, what will be the upcoming training needs, trying to look from the human point of view and the educational point of view. Stavros, soft versus hard skills. Is it the time to revise what the shipping industry needs in terms of training? Can you give us some examples of the implementation of soft skills versus hard skills from your experience?
So good morning to everybody. Thanks for the invitation. Soft skills versus hard skills. We have been talking mostly about soft skills for the past 10 years. Nobody has measured what the results of the soft skills are. Today we are proceeding towards increased automation. We talk about machine learning. I cannot see the relationship between soft skills and machine learning. We talk about artificial intelligence. I don't see the relationship between soft skills and machine learning. We talk about blockchain. We talk about autonomous ships. In my view, for the let's say medium-term future, soft skills will be downgraded. I'm not talking about the human factor. Human factor is another issue. And we have to talk about hard skills. We need education. We have new technologies. We have new fuels. We have a number of new issues that we have not seen before. If we talk about fuels, the marine fuel for the past, since coal was gone, has been the same for the past 50 years. Now we talk about 5, 6, 7 different alternatives. In my view, it's not right to try 7 different alternatives. We have to focus on one. But in any case, we need people to be educated towards the new technology. And this is hard skills. This is not soft skills. We may save the day if people on board, if we still have people on board, cooperate with each other and solve the situation. But the advantage of hard skills is that we will not end up with a critical situation if we have the proper education. Talking about the example that Panos mentioned about the blackout will be restored only if the people have the technical knowledge to restore the blackout. It will not be solved because the captain will be a good friend with the chief engineer and he will not send him to hell. This is my view. I think we have come into a critical point. I will give you an example. I mean, there is a lot of talk about resilience. During the first seminar that we had in Maran for resilience, a lady was trying to give examples mostly related to her kids, 10 years old, 12 years old. And we have a captain standing up and saying, my lady, when my office is sleeping, I have to take 10 decisions a day myself. So I am resilient by definition. Summary. I think we have mishandled soft skills to a certain point, and I also think that we will not go a lot forward without hard skills. There must be a combination. My view today is hard skills should take priority. Thank you.
Thank you, Stavros. I couldn't agree more that hard skills should form the foundation.
Let's have a vote.
Let's have a vote. So I couldn't agree more, because this is something we see on our fleet as well. You need to have the foundation of hard skills in order to move to the soft ones. So, Mr. Golias, how can the digital transformation of maritime education improve radically the educational procedures and their attractiveness?
Thank you, Mr. Georgantzis. First, I would like to thank you for having me here in this panel. And second, as I am the General Director here in the Eugenides Foundation, I would like to also to welcome you all here. And we're very glad to have you in our foundation here. You know, Eugenides Foundation is a foundation that has a lot of activities in maritime industry. One of its activity is maritime education, where we have a lot of efforts put for the last 5 to 6 decades. So, coming to your question and keeping the time, I think it's 3 to 4 minutes, right? Correct. Correct. Okay. Is that we believe that digital transformation can really critically contribute towards improving the maritime education and also the syllabus of the maritime education. Perhaps we'll have time later to talk a little bit more about the role of education and how this will face all the problems already mentioned now. But through the digital tools that digital transformation can offer, we can have a better relation between the students, the teachers, and the issue actually taught. You know, people who are now entering academies of maritime industry are Z generation. These guys are very well acquainted to the digital environment, and they cannot see themselves out of it. Traditional, conventional educational procedures cannot really attract them. We cannot really keep their attention in. So we have to go to different educational procedures that will allow them to use what they are used to do, to use this intervention procedure, this procedure that interactively contribute to the educational procedure. So it's obligatory that we go to digital tools for educational material. And when I'm saying digital tools, I'm not only saying the book, the main book, which is digital. I'm not talking about PDF here. We are talking about books that are really interactive with the students. But I'm also talking about other tools like VR, AR, like simulation procedures, like gamification, like interactive answering, questioning and answering. In other words, we believe that this procedure, digital transformation, should concentrate in 2 axes. One axis is changing all the material, the educational material, to something which is digital, and then so find out the specifications about this effort. And also the second axis is really teaching the teachers, producing a platform through which they can produce the teaching period, the 2-hour teaching period, by using all these different educational tools. Now, digital. Now, Eugenides Foundation has a lot of activities in these areas. I'm not going to talk about it because we don't have the time. What I would like to say is that apart from all these benefits, this digital transformation will give the chance to the students to get acquainted in the everyday activities with advanced technology and develop their skills in this area, which is something very much useful during their professional life. So I would like to close stressing that digital transformation doesn't really mainly address remote education, but it addresses the hybrid educational procedure, which mainly concentrates in teaching within the class.
Thank you. I will keep the teachers, which was a striking point, and taking over from the remote training. Dimitris, Remote training has become part of our lives in the last 3 years, mostly due to COVID. Should we continue with remote training in the future? And if this is the yes, what will be the tools and how can we prove effectiveness of this process?
Thank you, Anthony. Kalimera. Good morning to all. Actually, to be honest, I don't think we can avoid that. Our life has changed. We have remote everything, remote social life, remote audits, remote surveys, so we have to live with remote training as well. That's a fact of life. And also seafarers are used to that, and we cannot go back to traditional training systems. In Maran, we started having remote courses and using cloud simulators already 3 years ago. When we started, the first thing we asked for is, what is the standard? There is no standard today. So you can run any remote course the way you want. It's up to the provider. You can have a class with 50 or 500 participants. You can have a class with 12 participants. You can have cameras on, cameras off, mics on, mics off, chat only, questions, not even an instructor there, can be a video playing. So there is no standard. So we had to develop our own standard. And in cooperation with the university here in Greece, we developed our own standard, which says some simple things like up to 15 participants, camera on, microphone on, you have to be there, the instructor is there. Simple things like that do not exist today. The second thing is that, apart from the standards, that you need also to amend the training material and to train the instructors, because they have to change from the traditional way of thinking and teaching they all have to a modern way of thinking. So this is even more difficult than developing a standard. The third thing is the cloud simulators, and here there are a couple of makers of cloud simulators. We are using cloud simulators as well for cargo and for engine. For bridge, we are not happy yet with what is available out there. Now, for the cloud simulators applies the same thing. There is no standard. For example, the instructor can intervene or the instructor cannot intervene. So we have various standards there as well. So there again, in order to have an approved system, we need to have a standard in order to have a level playing field at the end of the day and ensure that training that is provided worldwide is effective and it makes sense to us. So, Adonis, to sum up, I think we need three things. The first thing is a standard for everything. The second thing is to train our trainers to the new technologies and adopt the training material. And the third thing is to find the correct balance between all those new methods of training, cloud, remote, actual classroom, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Dimitri. Noting the three last points you pointed out, Ms. Kalipolitou, the adoption of new digital technologies necessitates the need for a new breed of people, both in the office as well as on board the vessels. They will have to cope with the new systems. They will have to cope with the new digital technologies. How do you see the transition into the next day from the HR side point of view?
Thank you, Mr. Georgantzis, and thanks the organizer for inviting me to the annual 2023 Greener Shipping Summit. Addressing issues of human element of the shipping industry is always at the top of any agenda when talking of our issues. Today, more than ever, in these challenging times, is an imperative need. Decoding your question, allow me to congratulate you, since the issue of maritime offices personnel most of the times are in the second page of our reading, while the seafarers are in the forefront, and correctly. Let's give a closer look on what we have to deal, and for that I will combine my hats as Tsakos Group Human Element and Training Manager. Which should be the HR perspective in the following years until 2030 or 2050 or in between, when industry should adjust, implement, comply with the decarbonization goals and digital new technologies. At this point, we should be reminded that for a smooth and safety operation, the interface between the vessel and the office should be robust, continuous, based on the highest safety standards. Proper and in-time communication was always a must on this. So, let's decode. Alternative fuels technologies, and not only. Digital technologies. My fellow Stavros, my friend, already used some terms like machine learning, artificial intelligence, blockchain, etc. As regards the first, the training should be hand in hand with the seafarers and key personnel. And when we're talking that we need higher skilled seafarers, simultaneously we mean that we need higher and skilled key personnel. To do it, and we have to do it from the very starting point. Dual engines is a real example. Going now to the digital technologies, it is expected to increase training and familiarization, and we have to invest all companies to this, by all means, without necessarily targeting to a new breed of people. What I mean, the past is teaching us, as best practice, that it will be wiser to collaborate with universities and academies at the preliminary stage in order to create together the new captains, the new engineers, the new IT and software developers, the new mechanical, electrical engineers, etc. Allow me to give you an example. During my youth, it was difficult and rare to find an employee knowing how to use a PC. Why? Because we didn't have one. Shipping had always the capability to adjust the sails, and will continue to do that successfully. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Kalibolitou. I will keep that higher skilled people will be an absolute must for the future, looking at the office side, but as well as the vessel side. And jumping to Ms. Pala, Katerina. From the classification point of view, the new rules and regulations, technology and equipment are developing in a very, very fast way. We have difficulty to cope, actually, to follow up and understand. So how is the human element affected by all that? How can training help us keep up with this very, very fast pace? The need for more expertise in technical skill is rising, but how can we tackle this problem? What's your point of view?
Thank you so much. Good day and welcome. Well, let's take a step back first and then let's look at digitalization. Digitalization started very fast in the last decade, but indeed the pandemic really accelerated things. We had to be up to date. Applications, digitalization tools, new technologies has entered our everyday life, and the users now, the end users, we in shipping industries, the efficiency of our work really depends on it, really depends on these digitalization tools and the technological tools that we're using. Who are the players now? Who is the people that are working and the people that are using these tools? We have 4 different generations. Like my colleagues mentioned, we have the baby boomers, which the first technology that the first technological revolution was television and telephone. We have Generation X, which was the PC. Suddenly we have PC, and internet came into force. Millennials, myself, which was mobile phones, smartphones, emails, texting. Millennials was the first generation that started texting with each other, and now we have Generation Z, which is the generation that I'm not quite sure what the technological revolution will be, but I think it goes through driveless cars or, of course, electrical cars, but who knows what will happen. All this technology is really good because it creates new opportunities and the job becomes better and better, but at the same time, it affects people. We do need to have technical skills and we do need to be updated with digitalization, but what happens with us? How do we handle this whole digitalization operation? Have you ever heard technostress? It's a new definition that runs in nowadays. It's the psychological response that we people have to technology. We have techno invasion. How do we create? How is techno stress being created to us? We have techno invasion. Technologies are invading our lives. We have, let's take at the house, at our home, smart devices. We can turn on and turn off the lights from our work. In the car, we can turn on the television. We can do everything. So it's invading our space. We have techno insecurity. We need to be always up to date because the skills that we have tomorrow are old news. We have techno connection, which is the fact that we always feel that we need to be connected and we always feel that we need to be on our phone. So every time an email comes, even it's 12 o'clock at night, you are going to check it. So we need soft skills and we need training in order to train ourselves to see what this technology brings us and to see how we are being affected and what we need to do in order to handle it. And that's all from my side.
Thank you, Katerina. So, leaving the generations behind, being an ex-generation member, and the new terms that you brought in, techno-stress, I will pass to the second topic we have to deal with, to talk about with today. And it's about decarbonize with care and looking from the human element pillar. So, Natasha, going as the last one that you have not participated so far in the panel, with more low carbon, eventually zero carbon fuels coming into the energy mix for the coming years, tracing the CII will be of very high importance. At the same time, we see very high, broad spectrum of methodologies to be used for monitoring that. EU MRV, IMO DCS brings a big puzzle on how humans can deal with it. Can you please give us your insight and explain how the human element is affected in this green fuel assurance debate, from your point of view?
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists. Thank you for the invitation. So I will start with the current measures with a reference to those. So IMO DCS, EU MRV, Carbon Intensity Index aim at capturing the current state of play in greenhouse gas emissions in an effort to first measure then abate. We do know that we are peaking fossil fuel consumption at the moment, and from 2030 we are projecting a curve downwards to decarbonization. So in this interim period, it is admittable right to say, and we do not want to say otherwise, that crews on board are burdened by regulations and new tasks derived from this regulatory storm, if we can say this, with regards to energy efficiency measures being imposed. But in order to achieve the emission reductions set by the IMO and the European Union, new fuels will need to enter the supply chain at the end of the day, and greenhouse gas emissions should be measured and traced. So in shipping, in our industry, well-to-wake measurement is critical due to the different production routes of sustainable marine fuels, the hydrogen-derived fuels, with grey, blue and green variations coming into play, entering the market, with different greenhouse gas emissions, but nearly identical end product. So at the production stage, what we currently see is the exact same molecule of hydrogen or ammonia that can be delivered to a vessel with very different greenhouse gas intensities, depending on the source used at production. Taking an example on ammonia, we have grey ammonia in most cases derived from natural gas, whereas green ammonia uses sustainable electricity at production. So this as a process has a drastically different emissions profile. However, once they leave the production side, they're indistinguishable. Moving on to the bunkering, green fuels may be mixed or blended, as we all know, before reaching the vessel storage tanks. So there is a challenge also there. So for conventional fuels, as we know, currently Assurance is done through paper trails, through bunker delivery notes, and laboratory testing provided by Fuel Oil Bunkering and Advisory Services, FOBAS, and respective services by the other societies and other organizations. With alternative fuels, however, coming into the energy mix, it's not enough to be able to test the quality and quantity alone, but we need to be able to trace the carbon intensity. In this respect, we would like to share with you what our organization has done in this respect. So Lloyd's Register Maritime Decarbonization Hub, which mostly focuses on the decarbonization trajectory, have worked with collaboration with Safety Tech Accelerator in a project that considers the feasibility of using novel technologies into green fuel assurance, so into tracing the carbon intensity of the new sustainable marine fuels. So back to the question initially imposed, how do we apply all of the above on a human element perspective for our seafarers and crews? We are faced with a labor shock within the maritime sector from now towards 2050. It is important that seafarers are upskilled and competent as possible, and we see two aspects there. One relates to the assurance itself, and the other one relates to handling of the fuels. With regards to assurance, concerns may be halved by the fact that we do have ISO standards that are currently being developed for the new fuels coming on board. Taking as an example the biofuels, for example, in the first quarter of 2024, the 7th edition of the ISO 8217 will address those biofuels as well. We have the LNG standard, ISO standard, and the methanol ISO standard 6583 specification for methanol as a fuel for marine applications. So there is an effort there that ISO standards are being developed to set the quality criteria for the new fuels as we go along. We also have bunkering standards being developed for methanol. For example, there is the European standardization body to develop for inland waterways vessel to start with, and there is also, since January 2020, a guidance provided by the Methanol Institute and Lloyd's Register, providing also checklists for safe bunkering of methanol. There is still a long way to go, but there is an effort there. The steps have been made. So coming back to the study mentioned before on capturing the carbon intensity of the new fuels, this study has showed us that technology can indeed play a role in tracing the true carbon intensity of hydrogen-derived fuels. So this was a feasibility study based only on ammonia and hydrogen. Gradually, we see testing and assurance will be upheld by technology. So we do envisage there will be no imminent need to heavily upskill seafarers in the extent of the assurance certification of those fuels. When it comes to handling, however, the situation can be alarming. We do recognize this and acknowledge this, and it depends on what type of propulsion systems we have on board the new vessels. So, for example, if we are looking for hydrogen vessel of the future, this will usually take the form of a fuel cell, which will look like a black box. So the crew may not need to come into close contact with the fuel cell itself. It is, however, a whole different story with ammonia because of the high risk when the crew need to handle those fuels. So there is an overlap with power plant systems on board, so it's necessary there that seafarers are upskilled and more measures need to be taken in terms of health and safety due to the high handling risk when it comes to exposure to these fuels. The way we see the future for modern fuels, for modern vessels, is less activities and maintenance to be carried out on board the vessels, and we do foresee a role of technology there, to be honest. So most of these activities may be outsourced to third parties, to original equipment manufacturers. There may be lessons there to be learned by other industries like the aviations. So we do need to consider that they will be undertaking not just plant maintenance, preventive maintenance, conditioning monitoring type of approach, etc. Also, technology may in the future play a role in the upskilling of seafarers themselves on board with virtual reality. So we can use that to upskill people. And one last comment I would like to make, especially for ammonia, because we do reference it, there are lessons to be taken by other fuels like LNG in the design and in the way we do design vessels in order to isolate the fuel preparation areas, the areas of the high risk. So technology, automation, and artificial intelligence can indeed, or may in the future, take the risk away from the people that do not need to enter or spend too much time in those high-risk areas. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. So it's obvious from your response that the road to decarbonization appears going through gas fuels, at least for the immediate near future, which as a fact brings a whole new challenges for the operators. So, Dimitris, from your point of view, you come from a company that handles vessels, operates vessels that carry gas, but also consume gas for their propulsion. What would you advise to the various operators that until today do not have any experience handling gas fuels? Gas is bringing a number of challenges for all of us. It's toxicity, as Natasha mentioned, pressure, temperature, storage, holding time. So what would be your advice?
Thank you, Adoni. Yes, I guess it was easier for us compared to starting from scratch, but it was not easy. Now in Maran, we have 4 vessels with dual fuel. I'm not talking about the LNGs, 2 for Maran tanks and 2 in Maran dry. And how we dealt with that, because that was a big project and also stressful. So we started from the very beginning. We were involved in the plan approval and the building of the vessels. The advantage we had is that we could send engineers to the LNG vessels, sail with the LNG vessels, so get familiar with MEG engines and the LNG as fuel. So that part was easier for us. But again, it was not easy. I give you an example. Training, STCW training for IGF vessels. In Manila, we had a discussion yesterday with our office there. There's only one training provider that can give training for IGF vessels. In Piraeus, it's only one. So to cover the STCW requirements is a challenge itself. And for us, although we were very well prepared, we managed to get the certificates the day before the delivery of the vessel by courier, express courier to Manila, to Korea. That was stressful. It was not easy. So my advice to anyone who is starting from scratch is that they have to be involved from the very beginning in the plan approval and in the building of the vessel to get experience. Not leave anything for the last minute. Ensure that their officers are trained and certified as required well in advance. And get any kind of training that is available from the makers, etc., etc. We used a lot, and we still use the sea trials and gas trials of the vessels to train other officers as well, because it's 1 month there, and it's a very good experience, including the bunker operations, etc. So that is my advice. Start from zero and be very well prepared and know the details.
Thank you. So early starting and very well planning is a key. I can confirm that we have done the same on our gas carriers. We started 2019 for taking delivery in 2021, and it has been a successful one. It was an LPG dual fuel, the first in the world to be delivered from Hyundai. So narrowing down to the gas fuels and going to ammonia, which appears to be one of the most special ones for the near future to come, with an early plan of 2025. Mr. Hadjigrigoris, how do you believe that we can tackle the challenges of handling ammonia with its toxicity properties with the engine room? Will we find a safe enough process of running on this fuel? What's your insight?
30 years ago, we were saying that double hull tankers will explode during their first trip. 10 years ago, we were saying that high pressure gas in the engine room demolish the vessel within the first trip again. Nothing has happened. My personal view is that technical safety problems can be solved with technical issues. Now, we don't like the smell of ammonia, we don't like the smell of ammonia. This is a fact. I think the problems with ammonia are different. Today, the total production of ammonia worldwide is about 180 million tons. The total fuel consumption for shipping is about 300 million tons of fuel. Multiply by 2.2, and you will see that we will need around 700 million tons of ammonia to power the world fleet, of course, if it is all ammonia. The production cost of ammonia is higher than the production cost of methanol, from what I know. What else? For ammonia, we will have to compete with the fertilizers industry. Ammonia at this moment is much more expensive than methanol. So my view about ammonia is, technically speaking now, we have seen there is at least, there are the two-stroke designers, both MAN and WinGD. They say that they will have engines ready in 2025. They started with 2023, now they have gone back to 2025. What I don't want to see is a repeat of the problems that we saw during the implementation of the low sulfur oil. Everybody was saying it's a piece of cake, especially the engine makers, and finally a lot of people had problems. And problems may be solved, but if you have a grounding or if you have a spill, the situation will get much worse. So the problems with ammonia, in my view, is to develop the technology, to test the technology. In my previous company, we had at least 5 times prototype engines on the ships. If I work in a shipping company again, I'm not going to accept it. I will not get the prototype ammonia engine. Thank you.
Quite clear. We are engaged in the ammonia trade. We have 2 vessels exclusively on ammonia transportation, 60,000 cubic LPGs. And handling the cargo itself, as long as it's contained, is a well and easy, straightforward process, sometimes easier than LPG. The problem starts, as you correctly mentioned, in case of a problem, in case of a leak, that then you need to have the mitigation measures to control the consequences and protect the crew.
Antony, let me say something more. Recently, there was a presentation made, publicly made, by the port of Valencia, saying that almost for the whole Spain, ammonia bunkering would not be allowed within the port limits.
The political issue as well, yes. So we'll see how the future will bring for us. And changing subject and going to digital technologies and current and future use, and how we can manage digitalisation on board. Mr. Golias, how can the role of maritime education be preserved in a continuously evolving environment for maritime industry, looking at the advanced technology possibilities?
Thank you. Well, I would like to start saying that it goes without saying that it's a predominant condition to have a maritime education that will give all the knowledge required to the seafarers and all the ship officers. Now, these officers should have a very good knowledge of what's happening today, but should also be in the position to assimilate all changes that will come, that are coming, and be in the position to apply all of these changes and to cope with these changes. Now, there is no doubt that the maritime industry is experiencing a significant shift. This is mainly due to it's mainly related to digitalization and decarbonation. Now, the question here is, what should maritime education do? Whether these changes are coming quickly or slowly, we can discuss about it for hours here. The thing is that they are coming, and they will come. And it's sure that they have arrived to a small percentage, all of them, or to a bigger percentage, some of them. Now, here I would like to concentrate, Ms. Pala said before about the soft skill that has to do with training those that are really illiterate with what is happening with digitalization. And actually, and unfortunately, these persons are in decision-making positions. So I agree. They have to be educated and to know what digitalization can do. But the Z generation is here, and the Alpha generation is coming. So whether we want or we don't want it, these things are there. So what's the role of the education, of the maritime education now, through the use of all these digital tools? First thing is to educate them and to use all these means that they are used to use, that is digital tools. Now, the other thing is that there is a big duty to the, let's say, academic sector to see how they go about it when things are not yet determined about specific issues. What should education do about these issues? Obviously, they should open the teams, they should open the alternatives, and then they have to decide how long they go on these alternatives. Because education has to decide about this before these different developments arrive. When they arrive, it's very difficult for education to cope with them because the graduates will have no idea about it. So there is a duty for the academic sector together with the industry to define these things. Industry here has to play a very important role. My university, the National Technical University of Athens, has decided about our syllabus on the basis of the industry. And then, when we decided how we go about them, then we went to discussion with the government and the state and all the regulations that should be put there. But we had the answers and the alternatives on these issues. So the role of maritime education here is to prepare before what is coming. And actually, I think to preserve this duty, we have to evaluate constantly all the syllabi and to change them, not constantly, but from time to time, taking into account that the graduates should be in the position not only to face problems of nowadays, which of course is the main trouble with the companies, but also of the problems that would arrive later. And this, I think, is the role which we should preserve for maritime education. And I think this is a role that maritime education has, and will have.
Thank you. Thank you. You have repeatedly mentioned duty in your reply, in your position, which is a very heavy word. And you put the focus on the graduates coming out from university and their ability to look into the future problems and be able to tackle them and solve them. And you started by making a reference to Katerina's last position. So passing again to Katerina, how do you see that all this digitalization and new technologies of new equipment affect the mental health of people? We are very well accustomed, and we all know how to handle if somebody cuts a finger, breaks a leg, or have an incident like this in our daily lives. But if we look at the new problems that we have to face, stress, anxiety, struggling, depression, what's your point of view from this new breed of issues?
Thank you. So let's start by saying what mental health is and what mental illness is, because it's a definition that kind of scares us sometimes. Mental health and mental illness, let's say, it can vary from something very serious, bipolar disorder, major depression, trauma, to something not that serious, like struggling, being anxious, being stressed in every day, feeling sad, not feeling ourselves, and struggling with the everyday situations. Some statistics that the organization in America for controlling diseases had issued the last couple of years: 1 out of 5 people will suffer for a mental illness throughout their lives. 1 out of 4 people will suffer a mental illness, something minor, in a year. And 1 out of 25 people will suffer from a major mental illness throughout their life, bipolar, schizophrenia, stuff like that. Take a look of how many people we are now and think that maybe there's someone next to you who is struggling right now. And the same goes to the people on board. So, I mean, the statistics. So same thing goes for the people on board. And the question is, do we know how to handle it? We do know how to handle someone breaking their leg on board. We have a medical officer who is certified, qualified for everything, and he will do his job, and of course we will remove him and take him to the hospital. When it comes to a seafarer, or even a colleague at the office, that we see some signs, we see him struggle, we see him not feeling very up like he used to, or being always isolated in his cabin, or waking up in the morning and being always unsaved and not in a mood. What do? Do we just say, come on, man, get up, let's do our job, it's nothing, it's all in your head. You will never say something to someone that broke their leg. Say, oh, come on, it's in your head, let's go run a marathon now. Same goes for mental health. But do we know how we will speak to that person? Studies have shown that a lot of people, when we ask them, how do you handle someone you see him struggle, you see him suffer, they reply, I don't do anything because, you know what, I may make it worse, I don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. And it's true, we don't know. And it's true that we're not being trained or we are discussing this issue between us. Do you have any procedures in your company about cases like that? Just a question to think about it. What do the people on board, our seafarers, do if they see a colleague struggling? I used to work my expertise is in incident investigation, so we had some incidents, some suicides that happened on board that we had to look into it. Do we have procedures for that? And the answer is quite easy sometimes. Just look at the person, see the signs, listen to that person, check back with him what's happening, and try to take care of yourself in order to take care of the other people, and just look around and just ask the question, how are you today? Thank you.
Certainly a different perspective from what we've listened until now. So, having reached this point, Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask you whether you would have something to challenge the panelist members or address some of the points you've listened so far.
I wouldn't say challenge. I just want to say that we're going through a phase now, ladies and gentlemen, where I don't know whether we can refer to this procedure as being an evolution or a revolution. It's a matter of opinion rather than a matter of fact. Katerina, you wired us very, very much. You just covered areas which, in fact, I personally haven't got the familiarity with, and I'm sure that people who share our experience are also very concerned about this new aspect, which is it's quite traumatic, actually, and quite worrying, but so I don't think we can have anywhere near a solution. There are two questions which I'd like to put one to Mr. Stavrikanzi, who I've worked with a lot of panelists in the past, and I've always find it educational for my part. And the second question is to Kalipolitou Venedia. The first one is, Stavro, is that you mentioned the soft and hard skills on ships. I was at the Economist session a while ago, and they referred to aspects which are called reskilling and upskilling. Now, I was wondering with the reskilling and upskilling, as I mentioned just briefly in my opening speech, is that I think reskilling and upskilling is not just something which concerns our crew or people who work with us. In fact, I think all us on this panel, at least speaking for myself, need reskilling and upskilling. You know, with a lot of things, I mean, we're in the same boat. we have the same worries and the same concerns, and I think the more we can address those issues, I think the more we can see the way forward as to how we would handle it. So I'd like your answer on that question. And the other question, which in fact you want to think about, Venetia, is that would you differentiate, because here we've got hardcore technical people in this panel, the difference in the aspect of how one should deal with artificial intelligence or emotional intelligence? Salvage?
So my interpretation of reskilling and upskilling, reskilling is related to shifting the focus from soft skills to hard skills, because we are going to need them more in the future. And upskilling is new technology. This is how I look at these words, let's say. And of course, we have to work together. We have to establish what we have to get to know in the management companies, and we have to establish what we have to do for the ships on board. What I'm trying to say is now a huge gap is being created between the technology that seafarers can manage at this moment and the technology that we will need in the next 10 years, when it is good to start as early as possible.
Just in there.
So we're more worried than we were before. Venetia?
Thanks, Chair. I think that we will introduce both terms in our daily business. One hand, artificial intelligence, we are facing that, we are living with that every day, even more. We have the tools, we have people around the industry to help us. Emotional intelligence, I think that I should steal some words of my colleague, Ms. Katerina Pala, saying that so many generations, Z generation, millennium generation, all of this kind of aspects needs our attention. I think that we have to build a culture on this inside the shipping company, inside every company, because I think that by establishing the culture of the emotional intelligence, only benefits one can see in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any comment from the floor? If anybody wants to make a quick comment before we proceed with the sequence. Anybody want to ask a question or make a comment? Anybody? Feel free to speak. That's what we're here for. No? Okay.
Can I make a comment on this, on the latest issue of what the mental status today is? Personally, I don't feel that the mental status of people today is worse than the mental status of people in the 1980s. If you watch a movie, an American movie of the 1980s, you will always see a bed with a patient talking about how his mother and his father and his brother was treating him. We don't see this today. So we have to be careful what we define as mental status. Everybody in this office, I think they are making incident investigation reports. What are the statistics? How many of the incidents that have been reported and analyzed are because of mental issues, and how many are because of lack of education, lack of attention, lack of having on board the proper people, and all these other issues?
Can I also add something? Now, about emotional intelligence that was mentioned before, actually emotional intelligence does have to do with whether you are mentally sick or if you are mentally correct or if you are clever or you're not clever. Emotional intelligence is the way to communicate with people, to convince them, to lead them. This is emotional intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is the power that the machine gives you to analyze very quickly and to help you on the basis of this analysis to take decisions quickly. So it's two different things that may be together there. The one doesn't include the other.
Should we add that many of the most genius people were at the border of mental sickness? Most of them.
Yes, Mr. Kourkountis.
If I may intervene, mental health status has been and will be what we are trying to do is to increase our awareness on how to deal with this problem. And this is what we are trying to do. Full punct. On a separate note, because I see that there is a feeling that soft skills and hard skills are opposite. They are not. To perform, you have to be competent. To be competent, you have to have hard competence and soft competence. You need to know, which is hard competence, and you need to apply your knowledge in a team, which is soft competence. And to end, question, technical manager. What is most important for a technical manager to perform? Technical or manager?
Depends on the manager.
So, taking on Mr. Kourkountis, I think we are in agreement, and the panelist members also in full agreement, that you need to have the hard skills in place and solid in order to do the job prior to developing the soft ones, and certainly hard and soft go hand by hand. What can I add from our own experiences, where we see the problem arising the last years is lack of situational awareness, especially for the younger generation, people, third officers, second engineers, coming on board the vessels and developing very fast up to the higher ranks. And this is the problem that we have at least identified that we need to tackle. And I believe that several of the operators being in this room today are facing similar issues. So taking over from Ms. Kallipolitou, last comment. There's another question. I'm sorry.
Hello. Just I wanted to add something on the question of Mr. Kourkountis. I think that technical manager, for example, depends on the company, Taki. If it is...
Lavidas, can you please take the mic?
Yes, if it is a big company, a large one, definitely the management side is more important, the soft skill, than the hard skill. But if it is a small company, a hard skill is always better. This is my personal opinion. I just wanted to ask also, because I heard all these very good presentations, opinions, and also many new things for me as well, like what our chairman said about reskilling and upskilling, and also mental health approach. I wanted to ask whether maybe also the recent examples we don't have in the shipping, but maybe the trains in Greece, give us some lessons that we can use technology, parts of technology, to create both hard skills and maybe soft skills in the near future in order to do our job safely and better. So I would say that is not only to have the training required, but to have applied the systems with the possibility of being fail-safe or human error-proof to the largest extent. Is that something that the new technology, like I think Mrs. Natasha mentioned, can be an ally instead of an opponent? We use the new digital technology, and all of us have heard now about open AI systems like the chat, GPT, etc., that can help us create what we miss. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I believe that it's our duty to learn from the tragic incidents that we face, no matter if it's in our industry or outside of it. And the responsibility lies with us to do so. I don't know if this is answering in a very short way your point, but at least this is my own perspective. So moving on, with Ms. Kallipolitou and the point that she closed a few minutes ago, jumping into the STCW, which is forming the foundation for our seafarers, and its development. Do you believe that the STCW review will be sufficient to face the identified needs, all these problems that we are discussing for the last hour? And would that be sufficient, or the shipping companies would have to form their own systems, trainings, development, career development plans of the people in order to tackle the new era?
Thank you, Adonis. It will be few minutes after self-evidence if STCW will manage, because I'm intending to give you some key points of the so far deliberations. At the beginning of February, HCW night took place at IMO. One of the main points of the discussion was the comprehensive review of the STCW, in which I was honored to represent the industry as an advisor to the Hellenic delegation. Main points of the outcome: target completion year 2026, including training provision addressing bullying, harassment in the maritime sector, including sexual assault and sexual harassment. So all of these areas will be introduced. Preliminary assessment of the work to be done and the roadmap for approval to the next Maritime Safety Committee. In parallel, we will consider ongoing areas of work separately from the work of the review. So that means that the work at IMO, at the HTW subcommittee, will continue to expand the discussion, while at a later stage they will decide if they will include the new items to the comprehensive review. We are expecting to see provisions for seafarers relevant to alternative fuels and the related technologies. I'm using exactly the terminology because you are going to see it over the next months again and again. They will try, when first they have to decide if it is a preliminary stage, to address provisions regarding MAS, the Maritime Autonomous Surface Ships, always speaking about training. More discussions are expected in the future towards decision of the preliminary stage of this. And allow me to give you, according to my reading, some words between the lines. Psychological safety, terms that will be introduced. How they are going to underline that? Creating a psychologically safe workplace is key to attract young people to the industry. Second point, ensure that mobility of seafarers across different ship types and trades will be taken into account. Third point, companies' responsibility and the role of port state control authorities. Fourth, digitalization and emerging technologies on ships and ship operations will be introduced. And as we discussed already, e-learning will also be an aspect to the comprehensive review. What we must not forget is that STCW is establishing a set of the minimum requirements regarding training and eventually certification. So that means that it will be a lot of space for companies' initiatives. As industry, what we are doing, and we will continue to do, is to follow the evolution or revolution through our company-specific training requirements matrix, in order to maintain our competitive advantage for qualitative and skilled crew beyond the statutory requirements. So, of course, there will be a lot of things that we should do because the statutory level is the minimum one. driven by the guidance of relevant associations and organizations of the market, and allow me to say, when necessary and appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kallipolitou. Understand, Panos, you have something to add?
Can I jump into this discussion?
You may.
Because actually, we heard from Ms. Kallipolitou just the situation that we have today. You had the discussion. You are expecting the law to come in 2026. This is very typical. So at this moment, we have systems on board, which we have been learning already many, many years, but there is no regulated. It is not a must. Every company could take their own path to comply, and this is actually the problem which is coming with the present system we have, with the education and with the rules in shipping. By the time that the rules will come, we will have something different to discuss. At the moment, we face in the ships on the water a very big problem, having systems that are installed 5-6 years ago and are not supported by the maker because the software is changed, because they do not support this electronics any longer. They have a new system. We have to remove the previous one and to install the new one. Some of these systems are extremely expensive, and you have to do new trials, you have to do new plan approval. It's a situation that we are facing today. So we are always behind, and when we have a meeting in 2023 to issue the rules in 2026, we are sure that the rules will not be updated by 2026. We will have a different technology. Another thing that I would like to mention, as Mr. Kourkountis said, regarding soft and hard skill, indeed, we need both. It doesn't make any sense to talk that we will have hard skills and we will not have soft skills, or we are okay with the soft skills. It's a very demanding environment. We come up and we are not able to cope, as Mr. Georgantzis said, with the new regulations and the new technology which is coming on board. We are not able actually to evaluate and to operate properly. And we need soft skills, hard skill, emotional intelligence, capabilities from the people, continuous training, and everything actually what is available.
If I may add something.
Please.
That's for sure. It's another parallel world in training. Yeah. What we actually need and what we have to do. Just to add a small reference of what Dimitri said earlier, of a pragmatic example with the 4 dual-engine vessels. We know the technology, probably. We know where to go to the makers and have the appropriate training of all the system on board of a dual-engine vessel. What Dimitri said, it was a dramatic reality. Only 2 training centers can provide the statutory certificate according to IGF code, 1 in Manila, 1 in Piraeus. How we are going to cover the minimum requirements?
If I may intervene, all about DF training is hard skills. Soft skills is almost zero.
And taking,
or it's not additional. I mean, it's something that already exists.
And taking over is a very good pass from Ms. Kallipolitou and Stavros' comment, as well as Panos' intervention on defining that STCWs will provide the foundation, the basis, the absolute minimum, and trying to narrow down to a smaller segment of the industry. Dimitri, you're representing a company that operates gas tanker vessels. How do you see that the oil majors' expectations from operators will be in the future? We are all used to facing a massively far more complex and demanding operating framework from those sides. So what's your point of view on that?
Thank you, Andoni. I think many here in this room have been involved in preparation for a TMSA audit or a major's visit, so we know it's stressful. we try to be prepared for that. What majors expect? They expect everything from us, everything. And I go back to what Venetia and Stavros said about soft skills and hard skills. Allow me to read from here. It's a big list of what majors expect from us on soft skills. So we have leadership, managerial skills, mental health awareness, harassment and bullying, competence assessment, appraisal, resilience, train-the-trainer, mentoring, communication skills, team building, situational awareness, reflective learning, human principles, SIRE to interviews, etc. So this is a small list of what any oil major would ask from us to present that we have dealt with that. So I'm a bit disappointed that the STCW review will not address many of those issues. Traditionally, STCW was focusing on hard skills, but now there is a need to address soft skills as well. And I'm afraid that this will not happen to the extent that the industry was expecting. Because in order to deal with soft skills in general, behaviors in general, this should be best addressed through the training of the seafarers in general. What we do now is a piecemeal approach. Let's have a course on that, and course on that, and course on that, but not a holistic approach. And only STCW could provide that environment for a holistic approach on soft skills to make everybody, seafarers, companies, everybody's life easier in the future. So that is the first thing that we will have to deal with, for sure. The second thing is about the technical skills. And we all understand and know from the previous interventions that definitely STCW will not cover all the training needs we have in the future, but not even the needs of today. Another example from SIRE 2 and oil majors, there is a requirement to have every 5 years refresher training on engine simulator, which is type-specific approved. Type-specific, it has to do with the type of propulsion of the vessel. In marine gas, we have 4 types of engines. That means we need to have 4 trainings on each type of the engine. Those are SIRE 2 requirements, have nothing to do with STCW. So yes, it's a lot of work. Oil majors will keep on asking for things. STCW will not cover these things, so it's up to us to do it. And the same goes for office staff as well. It's easier to meet the TMSA requirements for office staff if we are looking at the boxes, to tick the boxes. But the big challenge there is how to make office staff and seafarers feel that they are members of one family, that they work for the same mission and vision, and they all feel as a family, as a group. That's the big challenge for all of us. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Dimitri. So your point is touching a little bit on, is extending to the marine academies in the future. So Ms. Kallipolitou, having the experience, how do you believe that the national marine education systems, the merchant marine academies, should be prepared for the next day?
Thank you. I think that will give a lot of food for thinking to my fellow panelists on this. I'm going only for 1 minute to say that at the last HCW, all the states were invited to avoid any, to prevent any administrative burden for administration and training institutions. And they urge all the states to learn from previous mistakes, in particular problems relating to the implementation following the last review. So we are talking about what we experienced in Manila amendments. Last experience, it was a nightmare. It was a nightmare for the administrations, shipping companies, and even worse for the seafarers. Everything was delayed, everything was up to the last moment. It was a stress shock for everybody and all the systems. And I'm not sure that we managed to succeed qualitative training versus mandatory certification. So what we need to do to save time at every stage, having as stage 1 the review of IMO. Mr. Kourkountis already said, do we have to wait until 2026, or if everything is running that we are discussing now in 2023? Everything should be crystal clear by avoiding ambiguity and gray areas of interpretation. In the STCW, as applicable, a conventional text is allowing us to do that. Second one, early transposition at national level of the STCW amendments and early adoption of the enforcement rules through the appropriate circulars. If the majority here is from the side of the shipping company, they will remember the vast number of circulars of how to implement and how to prepare the seafarers. Third, in parallel, the academies, through the state procedure, should work towards the new studies programs. I see a lot of my previous colleagues here, directors of studies from Mercer Marine Academies, and when possible to start preparing the relevant syllabus. We are not going to discuss here the Greek example, but it is worth mentioning that under the auspices of the Eugenides Foundation, we have the Technical Scientific Committee for Maritime Training. Mr. Golias is the chair of this committee, that provides a very important tool and resource to the hands of Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Insular Policy for timely implementation. Another one aspect is, I urge the states to digitalize ASAP all the administrative services necessary as provided for that purpose. Imagine the time that you need to take an CRA or a certificate if all the COCs should be changed. Last but not least, as another invitation to every state and every academy, educate well in advance your maritime lecturers and tutors. What's the meaning to have new, very up-to-date, technologically speaking, syllabus and studies program when the ones that were going to learn the cadets doesn't know, they cannot follow the technology. And last word is at the hands of the states and IMO to establish a proper communication channel. If something is going wrong, let's raise global awareness at IMO for appropriate action. We lived that with Manila when we had the grace period of 6 months, and it was too late. At the end of the day, shipping is a global activity, and its global measures for training included. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kalpolidou. So you touched, you referenced the quality of training being a very, very important point, which nobody would disagree. And having experienced in the last 3 years practically only virtual trainings and virtual classrooms, Ms. Palla, do you believe that these are still effective, or can they be as effective as a face-to-face approach with the teacher, between teacher and pupil and student? What's your point of view?
Yes, so the last 3 years with COVID, all the trainings happened remotely. All the trainings were happening online via the platforms that we were using, Zoom, Teams, GoToTraining, a lot of LMS, learning management systems that we were using to do all these trainings, and it worked. It actually worked. The training was the same, it was sufficient enough. People were joining us from all over the world. The duration was pretty much the same. We had this engagement with the participants and the trainer and the participants on their own. Teamwork continued to happen. The platforms that we were using, they allowed us to have breakout rooms, divide the groups into smaller groups, and they can have a discussion with them, do exercises and case studies together. They allowed people to follow the courses from the comfort of their home or the comfort of their cabin. We actually had also one colleague of ours from UK that was following one of the courses that we did online, and at some moment in the end, he said, he unmuted his microphone and he made a comment, "I just had a surgery 1 week ago. I am asocial for 1 whole week. This is the first social interaction that I had, and that wouldn't have been the case if we didn't have the virtual classrooms. If we had only the physical classrooms and the physical classroom that we used to, if you had a surgery, if you were feeling ill, you wouldn't be able to actually follow a course and participate with it. So the advantages of virtual classroom is there. And they will stay, I think. So at some moment, now that the pandemic is coming to an end, the question has arrived, will virtual classroom totally replace the physical ones, the traditional classrooms, where we were sitting all together in specific seating arrangements? This is not something that the virtual classroom have. And having one trainer in the center, in the front, and doing the training. Will the virtual classroom completely replace the physical classrooms? In our department, we did a survey last year. We did a survey that we sent to the ship management companies all around the world, and people could answer some questions from different positions. So we had from the HSQE officer to the technical directors answered this survey. And one of the questions was, how do you prefer to follow a course? Online live in a virtual classroom, physical classroom, or just follow a computer-based course and be over with it? And the results quite surprised us, to tell you the truth, because we were expecting virtual classroom to hit the red button. 49% wanted traditional classrooms. 46% wanted virtual classrooms, and only 5% were preferring e-learning, so I can just do it on my computer and not have any interaction. We did some interviews with the people that said, let's go back to traditional classroom, physical classrooms, and their comment, the most common feedback that we got was, it just doesn't have the correct engagement. I don't get the correct feeling when I'm doing the virtual classroom. I want the feeling that I can see the other person, I can touch him if I want, and I am in a place with other people and we are all in this together. Is this resistance to change? Is this a battle of the old versus the new? Who knows? Only time will tell us. So let's buckle up and see what will happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Katerina. And tackling time and moving to the last topic, which is onboard training, Mr. Golias, from your point of view, representing one of the leading technical universities of our country, that I'm a graduate as well, how do you see the training needs for the new engineers, for the new operators, will be for the future? What's your insight on that? 2 minutes, please.
Thank you. I'll try to be quick, although it's a very long question, but it's a question that requires a big answer. But first I'll start saying, and I'll be very careful so that I'm not heard as arrogant, and that the National Technical University of Athens has a main goal to create engineers. Our graduates will be engineers, that is, persons that know how to define a problem, decoding the parameters, have a very strong quantitative background, so they can use methodologies and procedures to find alternative solutions, and then come up with a solution which takes into account prevailing conditions and also means that are available. And I know a lot of you, even in the panel here, are coming from National Technical University of Athens. 3 of us are coming from there. And I know you understand what I'm saying here. Okay, this doesn't have to do with the school, whether it's naval or civil, doesn't matter. This is what will produce problem solvers. Now, the thing is that all this exercise, all this experience, this soft skill or hard skill comes through exhaustive procedures and exhaustive analysis that have to do with the specific issues of the school. So, let's say, of the naval school, everything there has to do with the naval engineering, but what I said before still is there. And what we believe we have as a duty, again, a strong word, but this is what how I feel about it, what we have to prepare engineers, graduate naval engineers, that can adapt to the changes. So this is something that is taught, and it takes time to be taught. During their lifetime, they'll have 2 or 3 radical changes in their professional lives. This is what all analyses are saying. So what we put as a great, let's say, priority is the students learn how to learn. And this is something very, very strong. And this is their strength, and that's why our graduates are there for quite a long time, internationally there, for decades, if I may say, with a lot of success. Now, coming down to the naval, which is actually the question which you put. Okay, obviously, what we have in mind to do, and what we should do there, is tackle all the changes, all the needs that these changes that are coming pose to the education required for a naval engineer. So that is going quick and just saying some of them. These are skills. Now, our the graduates have to have knowledge, hands-on knowledge on coding, on CAD, on simulation, on virtual reality. So they have not only to know what they do, but to use it. Also, sustainability. They have to know how to design vessels that are energy efficient, that are eco-friendly, and that are respecting and have a minimal impact to the environment. So this is something, it's a soft skill. We have to inspire in them, which is not technical really, but you have to start with something which is soft, and then you have to see how it applies in technical solutions on the basis of the soft skill. Now, also artificial intelligence and machine learning are issues that are very much required if you want to be effective and efficient. So that's something they have to know very well. And also interdisciplinary knowledge. One of the soft skills is to know how to learn in group, and also not only in group of the same background, but in group of different backgrounds. Now here, we don't have only the need to work in groups, but you have to have interdisciplinary knowledge. So you have to have naval architecture knowledge, marine engineering knowledge, oceanography knowledge, material science knowledge. They have to have all this knowledge to react in the way required. And of course, steps required towards these additional needs are update the curriculum so that they can, the curriculum can face these needs. We have to do this in close collaboration with the industry. And also invest in technology, because if we want that our graduates are hands-on, then we have to have all software and hardware that they can use. And again, it's something we have to decide together with the industry.
Thank you. One just point from my point of view, from my experience, prior jumping to the last question for Natasha. NTUA, the Polytechnion, is very good at producing people that see things black and white. While we grow, gray becomes part of our life, and we need to adopt into that, and it's not an easy process. It takes years. So jumping into the last question for Natasha, in a very short time, please. All these items that we have discussed, digitalization, new fuels, bring the need for immense training on the people at sea and the people in the office. How do you see that the classification could assist in this process?
So we do see media posts, studies, results, referencing sky-high numbers of seafarers that need to be trained. An indicative example would be 800,000 seafarers that will need to be trained until mid-2030s to deal with alternative fuels, which is a major issue at the moment, to achieve zero carbon shipping by 2050. I would like to bring to the discussion the Just Transition Task Force there has been a lot of work being done by this tripartite work model that brings together seafarers' unions represented by the ITF, International Transport Workers Federation, the UN Global Compact, and ship owners represented by ICS, International Chamber of Shipping. The work done there, which has been funded by the LR Foundation, and that ties in with the role that the classification societies may have, is to ensure that shipping in response to the climate emergency puts seafarers and communities at the center of the solution. It has been referenced by other panelists before about the STCW revision. The findings of the Just Transition Task Force have been that we should put health and safety first approach. We should have skills education, training, familiarization for all seafarers primarily, but office personnel as well. There is a lack of clarity about viability of fuel options. We do acknowledge that. I'm saying it another time. There is uncertainty surrounding regulatory developments, financial tools to unlock long-term change. So this is making it difficult to plan effectively for the transition of the maritime workforce. But the impact of this Just Transition Task Force has really been that there has been a position paper already released in November 2022. Some of this work will be fed into the revision of the STCW, into the revision of the greenhouse gas emissions work being done at the IMO, and there has been new strategies and standards being currently developed by the crew supplying countries in Manila, in Philippines, in Indonesia. This is work in progress. We do acknowledge there is a long way to go. There are challenges. But we should share this information and move forward. We do need pilot projects. We do need more awareness sessions, testing, soft skills, hard skills, a holistic approach, as mentioned before. The discussion is not about the ship only. It's about an asset. It's not about performance. It's about sustainability. There is a long way to go, but there are solutions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. And having closed the questions planned for this panel, we have listened to a number of different views and opinions about the key topics. And I would like to open the floor to all of you, whether there is any comment or any question to be addressed to the panelists. Yes, please. Somewhere where you sit, nearby.
Hello, everybody. It's well done, this excellent organization. Just more of a comment. There's a lot of or in your conversations, hard skills or soft skills, virtual training or classroom-based training. These are more of an and, in my opinion. Taking on from what Mr. Kourkountis said, both types of skills are needed. Taking on from what you said, yes, returning back to classroom-based training is amazing because you get that interaction that you can't do with virtual training. But can we take stuff away from virtual training? Could it be a combination of things? Could a training course start in a virtual classroom and end in a classroom-based setting? Could soft skill training or hard skill training be combined? Because if you're looking to do hard skill training, which is absolutely essential for these new technologies, are we looking at the quote-unquote soft skill training skills of that trainer? Is he communicative? Is he listening to his audience? Is he teaching as they need to be taught? So what we'd like you to consider as Lloyd Rangers and as an organization in general is these ands. Hard and soft skills, virtual and classroom-based, because truly we believe this is the only way forward. Thank you.
Just trying to answer in a quick way. I don't believe it is or. It's always and, or, /or. And the degree of how much and or becomes remains up to each one of us to decide based on its own organization, its own needs, because we have a different need from Maran or from any other company.
Can I add something? I would like to add something, what we did in my university again, which is engineering. Now, the experiment, Ms. Pala, didn't succeed. Actually, what we found out is when we analyzed all the results of the students, most of them had lower grades during the period when we had the classes that were not live. So it's something that we have to be very careful about it. I go definitely with both of you. You have to have a combination. It's a good tool to have it when you cannot have it live, but the relation between the teacher and the student cannot be replaced with any machine, with any podcast, with anything. Of course, use you can do, what Mrs. Pala said before with the surgery, but it's definitely use and abuse is something different. And I want to also to say to Mr. Georgantzis, black and white and gray, you said before. Black and white is education, especially when you talk about engineering. When you talk about politics, then it becomes gray.
I'm not into politics and I'm not intending.
No, policy.
Sorry, can I also add something?
I would like to give one more question because I have immense pressure from my side, from my right side, to keep on time. So if there is any other question that would like to be addressed. Yes, please, from gentleman from Macedonia School.
Good morning. My name is Haralabous Agdos. I'm the head of engineering from Merchant Marine Academy. I would like to point out some things about virtual teaching or virtual classrooms. What we have found out during the 2 years, of virtual teaching is that those who wanted to learn, those who had questions, could find a better way to communicate with their professor. On the other hand, a live classroom, having the whole live spirit of the students, it's sometimes difficult. And we found it out that when the students came to the next level, the next semesters, and we saw that they have understand meanings that previous students couldn't do so. And also, I think that Generation Z is far beyond us, far beyond Millennium generation, and far beyond the Moon generation that I am thinking that I'm from 69, back of 69. There is today's article from the University of Aristotle University, the medical school, saying that during February examinations, they had used tablets in order to do the exams. And you can find out the article today. And they say that the students think that it was a better way, and they have adapted, and they don't think that they could go back. I think that my kids, that they first start to use a tablet and then to write, think that it will be easier for them. So we have to adapt. Thank you.
Certainly we have to adapt, and I have a request that I cannot deny, the last one, a comment from Mr. Hadjigrigoris prior closing.
Yeah. To make it clear, I did not say that we have to forget about soft skills and proceed with hard skills. I did not say that. What I said is that we have been working on soft skills for the past 10 years. Nobody has measured what the results of applying these soft skills are, and that in view of the new technology, we have to start studying. How to study by laptops, by remote training, I have no idea. This is not my business. The other thing that I wanted to say, and it's relevant with this conference, we have to be careful what is happening with Greek shipping. Greek shipping is not the same as international shipping. It has been successful because we operated differently. When the requirements of the oil majors arrive in our offices, we say between us, 90% of the requirements are rubbish. But we keep doing this because of commercial reasons. I don't have an objection to this. We have to survive. What is happening today is not nice. We see the Greek flag because Mrs. Kallipolitou referred a lot to the ministry and according to the latest information, the number of ships with Greek flag have been reduced to below 500, 499, a yearly reduction. The bad thing is that this year we also have a quite 5% reduction, let's say, to the gross tonnage. The Greek fleet is 27 ships less and 6 million gross tons less. We have to do something differently. We have to prepare better. This is what I'm trying to say. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadjigouris. So with that note, I would like to close the panel. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are 10 minutes behind. Vasilaki. I would like to thank all of the members of the panel for the effort and the replies.
Thank you. Thanks also for being a very good panelist. Thank you. As Pascal said, he said that I've made this letter rather long only because I lack the time to make it shorter. The unfortunate thing about these conferences is that it's sometimes very, very difficult to fit everything which people have to say, and especially very constructive elements we have to say. And quite frankly, just to highlight, I think that these conferences are very, very important, and there should be much more attendance because we all come here and we learn and we find out some information more than we knew before we came here. I'd like to thank the panel, the panelists, each one of you. Andoni, you did a hell of a good job as a moderator. On that note, I'd like to go on to the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.